Thanks, Matt, for joining us. Matt, you're an asset finance broker from Charge Finance,
Yep,
and
correct.
you've been working with our leads for over a year, I would say, 2 years maybe.
Yeah, within this business for a year and previous business about 18 months.
Yeah, so you'll think you're well qualified to talk about them. And your experience has been pretty good from the brokers I speak to a lot. You seem to have very consistent results and higher contact rates and settlement rates than a number of brokers. So I thought it'd be good to talk to you about what you do, how you approach the leads, and you've been generous enough to be open about it.
Yeah, cool. Approaching him like a crazy stalker ex-girlfriend, probably not really the right term to use, but at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you've got to be quite tenacious in your approach.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
you can't sort of sit back and wait or sort of think that you'll call it later or anything like that. So I have an internal rule within my brain that if anything that I approach, this little voice says, wait 5 minutes. I have a rule that I have to call them straight away. So I usually call my leads within 5 minutes.
Yep.
Um, uh, we have within our business, we have certain software that will handle a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to automation. So contacting the client immediately as soon as they've made an inquiry,
Yep.
and that contact is via SMS. Um, it's just re-qualifying the client that they're live.
Yep.
When they do respond to that, I find that the contact rate on those leads would be near or almost 100%. Because they've engaged, they're automatically in, and you know that they've got their phone in their hand, so you can literally just pick up the phone and ring them straight away.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah,
Um,
we'll get into some
yeah.
of these tips and tricks through the prezzo, but
Yep.
I wanted to give you a brief intro into you and your approach, and
Sure. Yep.
yeah, thanks for your time. So let's kick off. So we'll cover today what the problem is that we're hearing a lot from some of our brokers, leads versus referrals, why they're different, and how you've got to approach leads, the philosophy behind them versus referrals. The goal, what you should be striving for, what the benchmarks are from Matt's business, and then contact rates, application rates, and approvals, all the way to settlement. You know, the steps in the process. We'll look at them one by one, and starting with the problem. So what we're hearing from some of our brokers is, you know, we're getting a really low contact rate of between 20 and 50%. And we had a broker recently who cited 29 applications from 150 leads, which we worked out to be about a 19% application rate. Now, compared to yours, Matt, where does yours sit roughly?
Probably as far as the contact rate and application rate goes.
Oh, and also application rates.
Yeah, probably 50%.
Yeah, around, yep.
Yeah, about 50% of the clients that I'm speaking to, I'll get an application out of. Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things. Um, Within a business, it's very hard to establish what this particular individual might be missing in his
Mm.
process,
Yeah.
without actually having a look at the business. But um, I usually find that anything that looks like this, it's probably one of those unfortunate conversations you got to have in the mirror. Um,
Yep.
you get out what you put in, but I would say that, if I'm getting 100 leads, you're probably going to get 50 applications, 20, 30 applications, 40 applications.
Yeah,
I
I think
wouldn't.
the point you
Yeah,
mentioned was half of the leads you speak to, right, with applications. So
yeah,
that's where that
yeah,
contact rate stat becomes really critical as well, is that if you're only going to speak to 50% of them, then you're only going to get 25% of your total leads amounts into apps. So that's why I guess we start with contact rate and then we move down the funnel step by
yeah,
step.
correct.
But this broker, for example, probably only got 6 deals from 150 leads. So the reality is, to make about 12K cash collected from that, from an investment bordering on $9,000, isn't going to cut it, and we understand that. So that's why we want to help with this sort of webinar today.
Yep.
Yeah, really, you want to be hitting about a 4x return, don't you? Like, you want to be really seeing about, you know, $4 for every $1 on leads.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, we're not in it for friendship. So it's got to be, we're in it because it's lucrative. I think that a lot of people unfortunately have a misconception about what the reality is and what the wish is. When we were probably brokers sitting in a chair, we were looking at, we were making $25,000 a month for the bloke that we worked with and thought, why can't I have all that? But,
Yeah.
when the rubber hits the road, there is a cost to it. Obviously, if you're spending 9K a month and you're earning 12K, you may as well go and work at McDonald's. So again, that's an unfortunate result from the amount of leads.
It's not uncommon that you can have bad months, good months, right? And that can be sometimes market dictated.
Man, I've worked with brokers that have got, if two brokers side by side, one bloke's getting 150 leads and his income's around 40 grand, and then you've got another guy who's getting 150 leads and his income's 15 grand. And the
Yeah.
main difference between those two people was attitude.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different contributing factors, but again, you don't know what you don't know. And I think sometimes it can be difficult for some brokers, depending on the size of their business, as to what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's right. It kind of points to the whole, like, even in a recession, there's always people and businesses making a lot of money. So we you can't really look at that as an excuse and say, oh yeah, it's out of my control, because all that does is make you helpless. So I think it's better to look at it from the point of view as what can I control as a broker, right?
Yeah.
And if I do these things right, I should maximize my chances of getting my maximal return.
Yeah, look, it's easy to do. It's very easy to sort of turn around and scream at the mirror sort of type thing. You know what I mean? Like but it's not realistic. You've got to be able to as you said, control the things you can control and not worry about the things you can't.
That's right.
Are
And
we in an ideal market for rates? No, we're not. But it's never been an ideal market for rates. Whether rates are going up or going down. I've worked in both. And eventually Australians, and this is the one good thing about our culture, is that eventually we say, stuff it, I'm going to do it anyway. So
yeah, exactly. People always need finance, and yeah. So we looked at a rough rule of thumb, that a benchmark that people should be aiming for. Do you agree with this, that roughly from 100 leads, one could expect about 50 apps? Although out of 100 leads, you're not going to talk to 100. So should we really be revising that down to maybe 80 conversations and 40 applications, or is this
and look, and you may not have 80, you may not have 100 conversations with people. I mean, sometimes I'll engage somebody via text that then leads to the application. Again, it comes down to how your business is flowing. I think a lot of opportunity gets missed by brokers by thinking that the way that they've been doing things, whether it's been for 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is still the way that you should do it. Post-COVID, we got to mention it. There's a lot of variation in the market. You speak to somebody from Queensland who was in COVID for a total of 3 weeks over the term, and it doesn't really, there's no factor from that. You speak to people who are in Melbourne, COVID was a big problem, for pretty much the whole time. So it's quite different, the markets themselves. So younger versus older, again, you're speaking to somebody my age, in their late 40s, early 50s or whatever, and we're going to operate different to somebody in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing. So, would you revise the number down? You could, if you revise that down to 80, 40, 20, and then
20, 10. Yeah, you still should be up with about 10%, which is what we say is about benchmark.
Yeah, and if you're not trying very hard, you should get 10. If you're good at what you do and you're not trying too hard, you should get 10%.
Yeah.
If you're an average broker and you're trying really, really hard, you'll probably still get 10%. If you need some help, you're probably less than 10%, and you're blaming the leads for it.
Yep. Okay. Contact.
Blame someone.
Yeah. Sorry.
You got to blame someone, and most
you might as well blame someone. I like to blame myself, because at least then I can do something about it. But
yeah, correct.
We mentioned contact rate. So you would stand by roughly a good contact rate is anywhere between 70 and 80% of the leads. Average might be 60 to 70, and poor anything below 6 out of 10.
Yeah, again, it's business approach. There'll be people sitting there going, you don't get in contact with 80% of your clients. I guarantee you I do, because usually it's via text. Contact can also be bugger off.
Yeah. So we're just
irrespective of,
including any sort of reply, right? We're just talking about leads
yeah, I
that don't
mean,
completely ghost
like,
you.
you know, yeah, like, I mean, I was always taught that somebody told you to piss off is actually a buyer. It's just that they haven't got the right information from me yet. And yes, that's probably something that the younger people can't stand hearing, but the older people, we used to get throttled with it all the time. Um,
Yeah. The worst thing is when they don't reply at all, right? Because then you've got someone who's just not engaging and is never going to engage.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a client the other day. I rang him and it sounded like he was walking his dog and, like, answered the phone, hello. And I'm like, g'day, it's Matt, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, look, I'm busy. I'm like, okay, yep, cool, no worries at all. Hang up, right? So I'll call you later. So I just hung up. I didn't book in a time. I didn't do anything like that.
Yeah.
I rang him again the next day and I said, I'm just ringing again. And he said, mate, I'm at work. I said, great, no worries at all. I tell you what, if you're at work or you're busy and you see my number come up, just let it go through the message bank. I'll leave you a voicemail, right? Third time I rang him, he didn't answer the phone. So I have a process that I work through with my leads from one to the other. And I literally just took him from here and just put him right at the very end, which drops an email and an SMS out to him, just basically saying, thanks for the contact. I'm sorry we weren't able to help you. If you need help in the future, give me a call. Move
Mm.
on. There's no point in staring at that lead going, why won't he speak to me? Just move on. Somebody else
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. Don't waste any more energy on it.
Not at all.
All right. We're going to get into some rules that are widely accepted in the lead gen space, and we all know speed to lead is key.
Yeah.
It was found there was a stat that you're 100 times more likely to connect with a prospect when you make initial contact within 5 minutes as compared to just 1 hour has elapsed. So what's your experience there, and do you think that's true?
Yeah, no, it was actually that study you're referencing is one that I've used before in sales training. It was actually done, I think, by Harvard, but
Mm.
um, it's a sliding scale. As time progresses, the chance of them actually picking up the phone diminishes. But not only that, when they do answer the phone, you usually get, who are you, why are you calling, all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you get a lead through, and I'm not sure whether any of the other consultants do, but if you get a lead through at 6:30 in the morning, I mean, it's in real time. So are they doom scrolling on their phone? Probably. Are you going to ring them? Maybe not. But you
Mm.
might flick them a text straight away, right? So
Mm.
if your system is engaged for that to happen, then that contact, which is within that 5 minutes, is actually what the reference is to. It's not a phone conversation with a key
Yeah.
decision maker like we're all taught. It's contact.
Yeah.
So if you engage that straight away, if you have automations in place to do that, and you're asking a question that's a yes or no answer, then you're going to get a response, right? If it's something that they have to respond to that takes words, they're not going to do it. If you ring them, they're probably not going to answer it. They're probably going to be pissed off that you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
you've got
that's
to
also,
you've got to
yeah,
you've got to
sorry.
use every method that's available for you to contact the client, not just one.
Yeah, correct. And we'll talk on why SMS and that is so powerful these days, and it's changed a bit since COVID. But there was a study recently done in the UK where I think it was the vast majority of British people would prefer to receive a text over a phone call, especially in the younger age demographic. No surprise, really, 18 to 24 and 25 to 39. It was almost 3 out of 4. 40 to 54, 61% prefer text, and then 55 plus, 35.